Shalom. We are in Ezekiel chapter 36. I'm not even going to tell you we're on the home stretch because I started saying that at 24 when we were halfway through, and now I kind of feel silly about that because here we're at 36 and we still got like 11 more chapters after today. So, yeah. Has everybody found their place? Okay. So, verse 1 says, "And you, O mortal, prophesy to the mountains of Yisrael." First off, I want to point out this is one of those horrible chapter break locations that I talk about. That I don't understand why they pick some of the places they do, because we are in, literally, as you read it without the break, it comes out to this is just a continuation of where we left off last week. Okay, it's not it doesn't even say that it was a different time that that the word came to him. And prophesy to the mountains of Yisrael and say, O mountains of Yisrael, hear the word of Yehovah. Okay, so we're back at that point where the people, or we're still at the point where the people have not heard him. He has preached to the hills and the mountains and the rivers and the streams, and the people are refusing to hear him. Even though they come to hear the word, they walk away having not heard it. Thus said Yehovah Elohim, because the enemy gloated over you. Aha, those ancient heights have become our possession. Therefore prophesy and say, Thus said Yehovah Elohim, just because they eagerly lusted to see you become a possession of the other nations round about, so that you have become the butt of gossip in every language, and of the jibes from every people. Truly, you mountains of Yisrael, hear the word of Yehovah Elohim. Thus said Yehovah Elohim to the mountains and the hills, to the watercourses and the valleys, and to the desolate wastes and deserted cities, which have become a prey and a laughing stock to the other nations round about. So here's the definition of what has happened. Everything is laid waste. Everything is run down. Yehudim are gone. Yisraelim are gone. Jerusalem, as in the people of Jerusalem, are gone. Carried off into captivity. Only a very small remnant remains, and they are struggling to hold on. And he says, as he has been saying, this is your punishment for having forsaken me. And now he says, but you prophesy to the mountains that stood here before there was a people called Yisrael, who will stand here after all of the other nations who are surrounding you have fallen. That their names have changed, their boundaries have fallen, have gone away. When the great empires are no more and they're in dust, these mountains will be here. So you prophesy to them so that they can testify, because no person living here now will be here to see it. Tell them this. Assuredly thus said Yehovah Elohim, I have indeed spoken in my blazing wrath against the other nations and against all of Edom, which with wholehearted glee and with contempt have made my land a possession for themselves, for pasture and for prey. So he says, I'm speaking against every nation that's come against you. I'm specifically speaking against Edom. For anybody who has forgotten, Edom is the second name of Esau, just as Yisrael is the second name of Jacob. It is the name by which he went, and he settled, and he created a city by that name, and that city became a nation state, or city state, I guess, what they had at the time. But his descendants became the nation of Edom, the Edomites, and he says specifically, I want you to tell Edom that I have spoken in my blazing anger against them. Why? Because they have turned Eretz Yisrael into a land of pasture and prey. Even though that was the punishment for my children for doing wrong, now I'm going to punish them for being willing partakers of this, because they're cousins. They're not close cousins, because a lot of time has passed now. But their ancestor was a brother to the ancestor of the people that they ran out and they tried to destroy. And so there's going to be a punishment. Yes, prophesy about Eretz Yisrael, and say to the mountains and the hills, to the watercourses and to the valleys, thus said Yehovah Elohim, behold, I declare in my blazing wrath. Second time he said that. That's a pretty heated anger. If it's a blazing wrath and the creator of the universe states twice that it's a blazing wrath, that's something I would never want to have to face. Because you have suffered the taunting of the nations, thus said Yehovah Elohim, I hereby swear that the nations which surround you shall in their turn suffer disgrace. But you, O mountains of Yisrael, shall yield your produce and bear your fruit for my people Yisrael, for their return is near. Okay? And we know that it was only 70 years before people started pouring back into the land. And we know, the first trickles did, and then they poured in later. We also know that in Elohim's time frame, deliverance is always near, because he's outside of time, and he's looking down and he's saying that he will call us back into the land. For I will care for you, I will turn to you, and you shall be tilled and sown. I will settle a large population on you, the whole of Beit Yisrael. The towns shall be resettled, and the ruined sites rebuilt. Now this tells me something very important here. The whole of Beit Yisrael. Remember in the earlier teaching I said all means all, and that's all means, and that's why when it says everyone on the earth, it means everyone, not a portion. Okay, here it says the whole of Beit Yisrael. So it's not a portion of Beit Yisrael. Well, what is Beit Yisrael? Beit Yisrael is the part of the actual nation. I'm not talking about the political part, the political nations or political countries of Yehuda and Yisrael, but the nation of Yisrael, all of the descendants of the man Yisrael, the part of those of his descendants that would be dispersed into the nations, to the four corners of the world, were called Beit Yisrael. Okay? So he says, even though you're going to be dispersed, I'm going to bring you back. The towns shall be resettled, and the ruined sites rebuilt. I will multiply men and beasts upon you, and they shall increase and be fertile. And I will resettle you as you were formerly, and will make you more prosperous than you were at first. And you shall know that I am Yehovah. Okay? This tells me that he's speaking of eternity to come. He's talking about the new kingdom. Okay? Why? Because even when they came back, They couldn't be 100%. I'm talking about when they came back, the remnant came back from Babylon. They could not be 100% sure where all of the boundaries between the tribes were, the exact locations, because everything had been thrown down. Everything was in ruins. Okay? And he says that he will personally put us back where we were supposed to be and give us our dwellings. That hasn't happened yet. We're back in the land. We're sovereign nation there. We're doing what needs to be done to prepare the way, but until he is ruling absolute and puts us back in order where we're supposed to be, as he says, where we were formerly, and causes us to prosper more than we had prospered before then, that is still yet to come. But everything is in the works. I will lead men, my people Yisrael, to you, and they shall possess you. That started in 1948 with the reestablishment of the state of Israel, and is still going on today. Just last week I was reading about some more Jews whose ancestors, Yisraelim, whose ancestors had settled in Africa, moving back, making Aliyah back to Israel. There are Yehudim moving back every day, and have been pretty much every day since the reestablishment of the country. Okay, that is a long process, but where he says that he will lead them from all of the other nations back home has been going on for a long time now. You shall be their heritage, and you shall not again cause them to be bereaved. He says that to the mountains. He's saying the mountains will be possessed by Israel, and they will not be bereaved. Thus said Yehovah Elohim, because they say to you, you are a land that devours men, you have been a bereaver of your nations. Assuredly, you shall devour men no more. You shall never again bereave your nations, declares Yehovah Elohim. No more will I allow the jibes of the nations to be heard against you. No longer shall you suffer the taunting of the peoples, and never again shall you cause your nations to stumble, declares Yehovah Elohim. The word of Yehovah came to me. So this is a separate instance. Relatively around the same time period, because he doesn't give us a different date, a different time. So this is close to the same time period. However, it's a different prophecy. If I were breaking it up for study purposes, this is where I would draw the break. The word of Yehovah came to me, O mortal, when Beit Yisrael dwelt on their own soil, they defiled it with their ways and their deeds. Their ways were in my sight like the uncleanness of a menstruous woman. Okay, so like a woman is unclean when she's on her cycle, and her husband's not allowed to be with her in any way, shape, or form, carnally. Okay, that is a picture there he's drawing. He's saying Yisrael was my bride, Yisrael was my betrothed, but she was unclean in a manner that I could not be with her. I could not be intimate with my people. That's what he's saying. So I poured out my wrath on them for the blood which they shed upon their land, and for the fetishes with which they defiled it. I scattered them among the nations. That's why we're in diaspora. And they were dispersed through the countries. I punished them in accordance with their ways and their deeds. But when they came to those nations, they caused my holy name to be profaned, in that it was said of them, These are the people of Yehovah, yet they have had to leave his land. Therefore I am concerned for my holy name, which Beit Yisrael have caused to be profaned among the nations to which they have come. And you know what? Beit Yisrael continues to profane his name. Not everyone, but many. Not every day, but often. There are still people, sons and daughters of Yisrael, who are doing what they know they should not be doing, who are not clinging to Torah. The world's full of them. Say to Beit Yisrael, Thus said Yehovah Elohim, Not for your sake will I act, O Beit Yisrael, but for my holy name, which you have caused to be profaned among the nations to which you have come. Okay, so he's not going to draw us back for us, because he can bless us wherever we are. But his name is profaned if we don't hold the land that he promised to our ancestors. Does that make sense? He made a promise, and he made a bold statement, not only to Yisrael, but through prophets to all of the surrounding nations, really to all of the 72 nations if you get down to it. Okay, 71 other nations. And he said, These are my people and this is my land, and I'm giving this land to these people, and you can't take it away from them. But then our ancestors disobeyed him. And part of the covenant was we would have the land as long as we obeyed, so he had to kick us out. But as long as we're out, it looks to the other 71 nations like he doesn't keep his word, because he promised to give us the land. So he's going to put us back in the land. He's going to make a way, not for us, but so that the other 71 nations know what we should have been showing them through our obedience. If we had been obedient, we never would have lost the land. I will sanctify my great name, which has been profaned among the nations, among whom you have caused it to be profaned. And the nations shall know that I am Yehovah, declares Yehovah Elohim, when I manifest my holiness before their eyes through you. I will take you from among the nations and gather you from all the countries, and I will bring you back to your own land. I will sprinkle clean water upon you, and you shall be clean. Okay, so we're talking about ceremonial cleansing here. I will cleanse you from all the uncleanness, and from all your uncleanness, and from all your fetishes, and I will give you a new heart. Let's stop right there. He will cleanse us from our uncleanness and our fetishes. And people, I know, even in this room, some people think that I harp too much about when you come out of the world, when you come out of the other nations, and you cling to your heritage as Yahudim, as Yisraelim, you need to let go of the pagan idols. And I know that's hard, especially when you have family members who criticize you and put you down and guilt trip you until you want to go back into it. But it says here that part of the process of coming home to him is putting away those fetishes. We have to be washed clean. And all of those things that you give up to follow this path, but people tell you, well, don't you know your grandpa did this, and don't you know this, this is the history of the culture of the family. We hear those things and we're tempted to go back to the things that they're wanting us to go back to. But he says right here that part of coming back to him and making this process, this journey, is to give up those things. It says, and I will give you a new heart and put a new spirit into you. Oh, wow. He's given us a new heart and a new spirit. We must be in that New Testament. Wait a minute. Oh boy. We've stumbled on something here that may just contradict the mainline church doctrines. Right here in Ezekiel, he will give us a new heart and a new spirit. And you notice it doesn't say anything about him doing that for the 71 nations. It says that he's going to do it for Beit Israel, for the descendants of Yaakov. Okay? And that's why I have this growing conviction, and I'm not 100% on it, but I'm very, very persuaded to the notion that people who get saved, for the most part, are ethnically Yahudim, or ethnically Yisraelim. Okay? Not every single person, because we know there are people who get grafted in, but we've been so spread throughout the nations for so many generations, it's not unthinkable that the people who hear the gospel and come and cling to it, who want that new spirit that is promised to Yisraelim, okay, those people who are clinging to that are hearing something spiritually. Their spirit is answering a call. And I believe that we will find, as we go into the new kingdom, this is just my opinion, but I think we'll find a lot of people who came to salvation through the gospel and then started, you know, getting convictions and starting trying to live right, even if they don't come completely into an understanding of what the covenant is in this life. I think when we get to the other side of the barrier, so to speak, the other side of the veil, we're going to understand that when all things are made new, that those people were actually part of the bloodline too, and just didn't know it. Not all of them, because it says that there will always be some who are being grafted in, but the majority, I believe, are eventually going to find out that they were of the tribe, so to speak. I will remove the heart of stone from your body and give you a heart of flesh. And I will put my spirit into you. Wow. He's going to put his spirit into us. But you know, if you go and you tell a mainline preacher especially, but any mainline believer, and you say it was always his will to put his spirit into man, and it was promised to Beit Yisrael, they will laugh at us, they will mock us when we say it, but it's right here in the scripture, written many generations before the Brit Hadesh was penned, that it is for our people. It is promised to us. Thus I will cause you to follow my laws and faithfully observe my rules. Wait a minute. Now here's where we get into this debate with the mainliners, because they say, well, if you have that new heart and that new spirit, then you don't need all those laws, because he's going to teach you what's right. He's going to show you what you need to do. Okay, well, it says right here that he's going to give us the new heart and the new spirit so that we will follow his laws and faithfully observe his rules. Okay, so all those people who say, I have a new heart and a new spirit so I don't have to keep Torah, they're lying to themselves. Then you shall dwell in the land which I gave to your fathers, and you shall be my people, and I will be your Elohim. And when I have delivered you from all your uncleanness, I will summon the grain and make it abundant, and I will not bring famine upon you. I will make the fruit of your trees and the crops of your fields abundant, so that you shall never again be humiliated before the nations because of famine. Then you shall recall your evil ways and your base conduct, and you shall loathe yourselves for your iniquities and your abhorrent practices. Not for your sake will I act, declares Yehovah Elohim. Take good note. Be ashamed and humiliated because of your ways, O Beit Yisrael. So when he brings us back into the land and we see all of these blessings, we will remember the evil of our ways, and we will hate what we have done. We will despise the things that we've done, and we will ask ourselves, why did we not turn to him sooner? Why did our ancestors turn away? Thus said Yehovah Elohim, when I have cleansed you of all your iniquities, I will people your settlements, and the ruined places shall be rebuilt, and the desolate land, after lying waste in the sight of every passerby, shall again be tilled. And that's happening today. That process has begun. It's just not complete. And men shall say, that land, once desolate, has become like the Garden of Eden, and the cities once ruined, desolate and ravaged, and now populated and fortified. You know, in 1948, when our people came back into the land, there was not one paved road, there was not one laid water line, there was not one instance of conducted electricity for living purposes anywhere in Eretz Yisrael. And the Palestinians want to say, well, we were here and we lived here and this was our home. What had they done? They were the descendants of vagabonds who were kicked out of every legitimate Arab state for criminal activities. They were exiled, and they came from different backgrounds, and they mingled there, and they intermarried, and they said, now we're the Palestinians. Took it from the name Philistine and misphoneticized it. They'd been there for a handful of generations and say, this is our home. But they'd done nothing to improve it. If you fly over Eretz Yisrael today and look down at it, you see nothing but a sea of sand and a green spot. And that green spot that shines like an emerald is Eretz Yisrael. Because we have learned to turn salt water into fresh water. We have learned to draw moisture out of the air and create water. We have replenished the land. We have tilled it. We have fertilized it. We have made rock into fertile soil. Everything that has been prophesied here has begun. And the nations that are left around you shall know that I, Yehovah, have rebuilt the ravaged places and replanted the desolate land. I, Yehovah, have spoken and will act. And that's going on today. That's going on today. People are coming to faith in the Arab nations, the Islamic theocratic nations surrounding Eretz Yisrael are coming to faith because of what they see happening in Eretz Yisrael, and they're having to flee for their lives on a daily basis. Thus said Yehovah Elohim, moreover, in this I will respond to Beit Yisrael and act for their sake. I will multiply their people like sheep. At Jerusalem, as Jerusalem is filled with sacrificial sheep during her festivals. And oh boy, is it filled. So shall the ruined cities be filled with flocks of people, and they shall know that I am Yehovah Elohim. And today there are villages and cities that were desolate for generations that have sprung to life to the point that Eretz Yisrael is almost overpopulated. And that's why we have what are called the occupied territories, where we have moved into lands that were traditionally Yisraelim land, and that the Accords of the early 1940s and up into 1948 say that we were supposed to be able to occupy We've moved into lands that we won during the wars of when the neighboring countries tried to destroy us, and we have taken land and begun to dwell in it. And that's part of when you hear the all the debates in the United Nations and what have you about us having occupied territories in the West Bank and what have you. The West Bank was historically ours. Okay, that would be like somebody saying, "How dare those Hoosiers move across the Anderson River into Perry County?" Okay, well, it's because it's part of Indiana. Okay, and that's really what's going on there. Israel has brought the land back through his blessing, have brought the land back to a fertile state. The cities are growing again. The population is growing, and every Palestinian who is willing to put down arms and become a citizen of Yisrael, not a Yisraelim, they can become an Israeli. They can never be an Israelite, okay? But unless they are and just don't know it, but they have that opportunity, and many thousands of them have. The ones who don't, they don't. I believe a large part of why they don't is because by doing that, they would be admitting that this prophecy is true. They would be admitting what he says that in the end they will have to admit, that he is Yehovah. Not that we're a great people, because we are flawed, but that he is the one true Elohim. Even the secular Palestinians who just say, you know what, I'm tired of fighting, just let me swear an oath of allegiance, I'll be a faithful citizen, okay, but I'm going to be secular. Even those people, by doing that, are acknowledging that this prophecy of Ezekiel is true.